I think we're about to pop up here. Process show Monday morning, almost Monday afternoon. Coming off of a just absolutely lovely NFL slate. I did not touch baseball whatsoever yesterday. Everything that I recommended ended up not happening. I loved Jake DeGrom. He got scratched. I loved Tyler Mahle as my second pitching option. That game didn't happen. So I'm just going to treat baseball like it didn't happen yesterday. Adam, did you play any baseball yesterday?
No, I didn't play either. And just from what you said and from what I saw throughout the day, it appeared like it was probably going to not be a fun slate just from a weather perspective. So glad that I didn't.
Yeah, I was like, oh man, DeGrom looking good. Nobody else on this slate. Love it. Yeah, no, gone. Scratched at 1:30 or whatever it happened. Lost my mind.
Yeah, I told myself I was going to play baseball with everyone focusing on football. But then by the time, like 11:30, 12 o'clock hit and I'm still like scrambling on football lineups, I scratched the MLB action.
I did the exact same thing. I was like, I could still probably play like a little bit of volume. And then I looked at the tournaments and realized that I needed every single second to dedicate to the NFL to get to like a functional spot.
Right.
That it all just went away. All that work in the NFL, and I think my return yesterday was like -3%. So
I
did a
would
whole
kill
lot
for
of
an
work for
extra
nothing.
3%.
That's true. Oh man. All right. So we did this last week, and ultimately it turned out to be not the greatest thing to happen to us. But yet here we are again, staring down the face of Luke Giolito. Giolito, surprisingly to me, and I mean this seriously, like 4,700 for him today. I would not have expected that price point. I know that last start didn't go well, but I thought he was creeping up a bit farther than that, and he's not. And it's not as if he's catching a bad matchup. Like it's the Royals. They're not very good. So 26% expected ownership on Giolito right now. I got 46% of him on my first crunch. And based on what we talked about previous to this show, you're probably going to be a little higher than that.
Yeah, I haven't run any crunches yet, but my initial thought is that I'm going to just play Giolito in every single DraftKings lineup I make. You did have a good point before the show that it might not be necessary to go that cheap. So I don't know if I'll actually have 100. But also, I mean, I just think that it's not even a price play. It's a talented pitcher at that price tag in about as good a matchup as he can get in terms of a team that doesn't walk and the team that has a bunch of lefties. And we know that his changeup gets a lot of swings and misses against left-handed hitters. So I don't foresee a situation where I don't end up with just massive amounts of Giolito. I'm actually a little disappointed that they priced him down so much and made him like a glaring, SP2 play.
Is he a glaring SP2 play to everyone or just us?
I think I don't know. I would think to everyone just because he's so cheap. Like if he had stayed at like 6,300, I think you would see the ownership drop off because he wouldn't just be like the second cheapest pitcher on the board. But I assume that he's kind of just an obvious play.
Yeah.
Kansas City has a 4.5 implied run total though, so I guess people will, maybe some people will shy away.
Yeah, I don't. The last start obviously didn't go well. 1 1/3. He faced 10 batters, 4 hits and 2 walks. So 6 of the 10 guys that he faced got on. Not usually a good start, but he did strike out 3. Didn't give up a dong. I really just don't know what to make of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of but like I watched some of that start, and his stuff looked good. If I remember correctly, he gave up a couple of either unlucky or just untimely hits and got squeezed a little bit on close pitches. So I remember coming out of that start, I didn't feel that badly about him. But um, the nice thing, obviously, is we had dug into him a lot over his previous couple of starts. So now it's kind of just like maintenance research. Like you can actually just go into that one start, make sure that nothing like insanely bad happened from a pitch type or velocity or anything perspective, and then you can kind of just rely on the research you'd already done.
Yeah, so I have the play log up right now. First inning, Candelario flied out, Aducci and Castellanos struck out. Great. Awesome start, really. 1-2-3 inning, 2 Ks, and you're thinking, man, this is going to be outstanding. We get to the second. Single to Vmart, single to Goodrum, walks Matuk. I don't know how to say his last name without saying it really awkwardly, like the guy from Entourage. Grayson Grenier? Griner? Does he go by Griner? Because I can't say it as anything other than Grenier, and then I say it like it's Robin Schabotsky, and I just want to say Adrien Grenier. But it's neither here nor there. I watch way too much deleted scenes of How I Met Your Mother. Anyway, he doubled. Jacoby Jones strikes out, as Jacoby Jones does. Lugo doubles. Candelario walks, and then Aducci reaches on a fielder's choice after Giolito's already gone. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 guys get on from Giolito at the top of the second, and he's just done. None of them are really damaging. 2 doubles are not awesome. He gave up 2 doubles to not great hitters. I see no reason not to go back to him and treat this as just like a really weird BABIP aberration.
What do you have you looked at what his BABIP was in that game?
800.
Yeah. Granted, like the starts before that, he was below 200. So I guess if you want to just say he regressed all in one start, but yeah, 800 in that game.
Yeah, 8. I mean, that's you could add up the previous 4 games and barely get to 800. And obviously, that's not how BABIP works, but just as an extreme case, yeah, I see no reason not to go back to him. And at 4,900, it doesn't even matter if you came to a different conclusion, because, or 4,700 rather. It doesn't even matter if you come to a different conclusion about his talent level, because at 4,700, I've played way worse than him.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, so I looked through like his pitch usage in that game. He was throwing his fastball more. He was throwing his changeup less. But I don't even want to take too much away from that, because if I remember correctly, it was like a 6 right-handed hitter lineup, and so it could just be a combination of he was behind in counts, he was facing right-handed hitters and not throwing his changeup as much. So I'm not really even concerned about that. I'm pulling up Brooks Baseball now just to look at the movement on his pitches and make sure that nothing really weird happened. But outside of seeing anything there, I don't see any reason to be concerned.
Yeah, I have it up here too as well for the people at home. Horizontal movement doesn't look like anything out, like the movement on the changeup itself is where it was in previous starts. That's by month. Let's go by game, since that one is a bit of an app. Yeah, no issues in horizontal movement that I can tell. Doesn't appear to be any sort of issues in vertical movement. I think he just got hit.
Yeah, I think it was just a weird start.
It just so happened that we talked him up pretty heavily that day in multiple shows across the Awesemo banner. So
yeah,
it stings a little bit.
That Grayson double too. It was like a fly ball to right center, and the right fielder took one of the worst routes I think I've ever seen an outfielder take. So like even that, it wasn't like it was like crushed off the wall or something. It was kind of just like a fairly deep fly ball that the right fielder wasn't that interested in catching.
So let's say that we are going to Giolito and we're not changing anything, because I think that I am doing that and I don't think I'm changing anything. And if that 26% ownership holds, or even if it like I want to have way more than that, and I'm sure that you do too.
Yeah.
Are there any other low priced options that you think we should take a look at?
Eric Fede, kind of interesting, I think, but there's weather concerns in that game, and I don't think he's nearly as good a pitcher as Giolito is. So that wouldn't really be something that I'm looking to pivot to. Like you and I were talking before the show, and again, I haven't done any of my crunches yet, but just my kind of like intuitive feeling on Giolito is if I had to pick a number where, like an ownership percentage, where I think maybe I would start considering backing off of him. If he got to like 60% projected ownership at 4,700, I think that's where I would start to get uncomfortable. And I'm still not even convinced that it wouldn't be a profitable play at that ownership. If he even gets to like 45%, I just think that that's too low at this price tag.
I'm with you. If I didn't put any ownership, like if I went into this without any exposure caps and crunched this out, it wouldn't shock me if I got Giolito in 80, 90, 100, like all lineups, just because of his price. So, yeah, I'm going to be going back to the well. I'm fine with it. When he gets blown up, and like you said before we went on the show, you just start breaking things at 8:45. I'll be on that same train. There's one guy I think we need to really take a look at, and it's because he's priced somewhere that he's never priced. Zach Godley is 6,400 today, pitching in Coors. He doesn't fit the mold of someone that I would expect to pitch well in Coors, but the thought of him having a $2,600 price gap between him and Marquez is kind of crazy to me.
Yeah. You and I talked about it with Kershaw pitching in Coors. You can do all the analysis you want on how a pitcher's should do in that park, how a pitcher should do in a matchup, but ultimately it all comes down to price tag. Every single player almost has a price point where if they were at it, you would roster him regardless of how he profiles. So when you see a price tag drop on Godley like that, it's accounting for all the stuff that you're concerned about, and it means that you should consider him more seriously than you would if he was at his normal price.
Yeah, exactly. He's got a talent level that even if it doesn't play well in Coors, I think it plays higher than a $6,400 price point.
Right.
What was he?
Yeah, I mean, for me, and again, this is without having dug into him yet, pulling his stuff up now, I guess from like a more of a macro on the slate view, the one thing that I'm more likely to stay away from Godley because of Giolito than I am because of anything having to do with Zach Godley.
So that makes sense to me. Godley, one start in Colorado that I can see this season, 5 2/3, 24 batters faced. He struck out 8, walked 2, gave up 5 hits, didn't give up a home run. If he gave you 8 Ks in 5 2/3 with only 5 hits, you are very happy at that price point.
Yeah, that was an expensive day for me, if I remember correctly, because I was very much anti-Godley, very much on Colorado bats. I think that was like in the middle of when he was having that stretch of really bad starts too, and then he just like put everything together in the worst spot he possibly could face.
Yeah, 2 out of his 3 previous starts to that, he K'd only 3. And in one of those starts, he had 6 walks. So things were not great there. I want to see what his price point was. Where are you hiding, Zach Godley? Okay. Oh my God, I couldn't find it. I was like, oh, wow, what is happening? All right, at Colorado, he was 6,500 in that start, and he put up 23.95 fantasy points on DK. That is what you're looking for.
He made 2 starts in Coors last year. Total of 13 innings, 15 strikeouts, 7 walks, 1 home run. So, I mean, really didn't even pitch poorly there. And obviously, I don't have that separated by individual starts, but that feels like he probably had one really good start and one really bad start.
I have them here. On September 3rd of 2017, he went 6 innings, 7 Ks, 6 walks, 3 hits. That was a 24.1 fantasy point performance on DK. And then on June 22nd, 8 Ks, 1 walk, 4 hits, 26.75 fantasy points. I mean, so that's 3 straight at Colorado starts at 25 or higher.
Yeah, that's really weird with the way he pitches, but I mean, I guess he is a ground ball guy, so that helps.
Yeah. I mean, if he's like, I don't care so much about the walks in that. Like, obviously, they'll hurt you and it'll make a home run hurt more. But if he's still getting the strikeouts there, I would like to have some Godley. I can't imagine wanting to ignore him. Only 7% projected ownership. That also screams way too low for me.
Yeah, I really was hoping we would look and find reasons not to play him, because now I don't know what I want to do between like having a bunch of Giolito and then also wanting to be overweight on Godley.
I also have another relatively cheap pitcher. Not relatively cheap, I guess, but, lower tier, and that would be Sean Newcomb, and we can get there. But
yep,
I really just, if Godley's 6,400 and he's under 10% owned, I mean, if he's going to get into the 25s, that's great. That really opens you up to have very interesting bat construction across your lines. You can really get more and more unique. It'll open up so many more options. So I love Giolito. I love Godley. I'll happily not pay attention to guys like Fede or Brigham or who else is down there. Arrieta is interesting to me for weird ways. Just another guy who's priced at a point where I would expect it to be higher.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, I hate Arrieta as a fantasy pitcher, but at that price point, it becomes a pretty reasonable play.
He went crazy in his last start, right?
Yeah, he struck out like 10 Marlins.
Yeah.
11 Marlins.
11 Ks, 28.5 fantasy points at 7,400 today, only at 6,700. So
got to get that price drop in there.
T McBee in chat. How much would you go to Giolito at 8,000 on FanDuel?
One
Oh
pitcher
wait, I'm
site.
reading that wrong. Is that Godley at 8,300? How much would you go to Godley at 8,300 on FanDuel? I don't have much interest there.
I would rather play Marquez at 9K on FanDuel.
100%. And
He's just
Giolito
a
at 8,000,
better.
I don't see as a very viable candidate either on FanDuel.
Uh, yeah. I mean, no, Newcomb's 6,900 on FanDuel, so it makes it pretty tough to get to Giolito. And then also, obviously, just rostering the one pitcher, like you might have DeGrom on the slate. You do have Kluber on the slate.
Yeah.
So there is some opportunity cost.
Yeah, I find him significantly less interesting. The fact that he's 8,000 on FanDuel and 4,700 on DraftKings is comical.
I think FanDuel for once actually has the correct price. Like Giolito to me is a pitcher who should be around $8,000.
Giolito is the 10th most expensive pitcher on the slate out of 20, and I think that fits pretty well.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, he should... His ceiling is high, but his floor is obviously incredibly low as well. So I like him being in that middle tier of pricing, not dead last.
Right, exactly.
That's it. Like, and that's sort of a way that you need to just think about this sometimes. Do you think Giolito's the worst pitcher on the slate? No. Do you think he's significantly higher than worst? Yeah. Okay, well then you should probably have more Giolito because he's priced wrong.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of take it. It helps to put stuff in perspective that way. I agree. Like, just take a step back and think about actual talent levels of players. And this really goes for any sport.
Yeah.
And just kind of look, and and especially if you're talking tournaments, because of the way that you see ownership end up playing out. Like, there are so many times where if you just kind of take a step back and stop getting lost in like your actual half point differences and projections, and just say, like, who is the most talented player here, because talent equals ceiling.
Yeah.
And you a lot of times find pretty profitable spots.
Exactly. Yeah, sometimes you just need to dumb it down to generic questions like, should he be ranked higher in a salary list? Yes.
Right.
Okay, then he's a guy that I should probably have exposure to.
And I think that applies very clearly to Zach Godley on DraftKings today.
Yeah, exactly. There are ceilings for these guys that are significantly higher than their price points are showing. And if you're playing in a GPP, that is what you're looking for. So you should be rostering guys that have higher ceilings, significantly higher ceilings than their price points. I know that's not a revolutionary speak, but it kind of is.
Yeah. It's like that's kind of like something that I guess people would have talked about like 5 years ago on these kind of shows.
Yeah.
And then everyone's like worked so hard to find like the newest advanced stats they can talk about that you kind of overlook what your actual goal is, and that's to get as many points as possible. And normally rostering good players lets you do that.
Yeah. Especially in cases where ownership stays low. If you have the conversation like, do you think Zach Godley should be higher than the 17th most expensive pitcher on DraftKings? And your answer is yes. And then you look at his projected ownership and it's at 7%. That leads me to think like, oh, I should probably bump him up and have some exposure. He is underpriced for the day. Sometimes it's just that easy.
Right. So have you looked into Corey Kluber at all?
Obviously, I mean, I was just going to pound him today, but I feel like the way that you brought him up means you're not going to.
No, I'm with you. I mean, I think obviously it's a really good spot. It's a good ballpark, all that. I'm looking into him now just because he's someone who has kind of disappointed this year in terms of his strikeouts, compared to what we saw last year. Mm-hmm. He's obviously still been good from a fantasy perspective. He goes deep in the games and everything, but recently he's been getting more swings and misses, getting more strikeouts. I think it's like 6 straight starts or something with at least 6 or 7 strikeouts from him. So I just kind of wanted to see if he is doing anything different.
Yeah, 10 Ks, 1 walk, 2 hits against the Royals on September 5th. Not too shabby. I mean, he's been good. Oh, man, 9 hits in back-to-back starts, Indians and Royals. But he's not getting hit hard. I mean, he's given up 2 home runs since July 23rd. I'm in for Kluber. Yeah. The only part that concerns me is if this DeGrom game doesn't happen, and it doesn't appear that it's going to right now. This weather looks pretty rough. What in the world does Kluber's ownership get to?
Yeah, it's going to be so high. It's frustrating too, because at least at first glance, there's not a ton of expensive bats. So it's just like, why are you like, you have underpriced pitchers with Giolito and Godley. Really, you have an underpriced Kluber at 11-1.
Yeah. So
And
I didn't know that DeGrom was going today when I recorded the night shift last night. So when I did my walkthrough, I was like, well, Kluber's going to smash my ownership cap because there is no one else around him that offers what he offers. There's just no reason to not be there. And I was looking more at stacks like the White Sox and the Royals in particular, just because they were cheap. But now I think we're right back to that whole thought process, because I don't think that DeGrom, I mean, we're projecting DeGrom for 32% ownership right now, but I mean, I think that's really going to be just 1% people that forget to take him out.
right. Yeah, and I mean, both Coors pitchers we agree are good.
Yeah.
Man, it kind of feels like a slate where I might end up lowering my salary, or yeah, my salary floor lower
Mhm.
than I normally do. And maybe just making some tournament lineups where, like, I have a Hap or a Marquez or something over Kluber
Yeah.
for no reason other than ownership.
I think that it's going to get to that point. I think it has to. Because if DeGrom is off this slate and, we're looking at the ownership at, I mean, what do you think Kluber's ownership? He's at 39% right now. Let's say that we know relatively early that Mets game is just not going to happen, and we're
What's
all
the
assuming it. 32?
I was gonna say I could see Kluber pushing like 50 to 60.
Yeah. I think 50 is a safe number to say. I probably don't want a ton of Kluber at 50, but he's pretty clearly to me the best option. So that's where I have trouble rectifying it.
Yeah, my first thought is I'll probably play 60% Kluber, and if that ends up being overweight, awesome. If it ends up being underweight, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
I think it's a really clear situation too, where his ownership's going to go up a ton based on entry fees, like how much the entry is.
Oh, absolutely.
So I guess that's actually this is a good example of a spot where if you're like playing max entering, like the mini max, I think that maybe just going like all in on Kluber makes sense because he'll probably be like 40% owned. Whereas if you're playing the, whatever the 444, whatever it's called,
Yeah.
then maybe taking some kind of stand and trying to be a little bit underweight on him where he's going to be 65% makes sense.
Yeah, he's going to be significantly higher owned as you move up the ranks for sure. All right, we got to do this one because I'm wearing a Braves t-shirt. I'm wearing a Braves hat. I assume you know where I'm going now.
I'm going to guess Sean Newcomb.
You nailed it. Sean Newcomb. That would have been a really weird lead-in if I was like, Adam Wainwright, former Brave.
Former Brave.
Man, that feels like a lifetime ago. How long has it been since Wainwright was on the Braves? I probably didn't live here, for sure.
That was before the Cardinals, right? Like he didn't go Cardinals.
He
Braves,
never
Cardinals.
even pitched for the Braves legitimately. It was just the minors. Yeah. For some reason, I felt like he got up and like threw out of their bullpen early, but he was just a prospect, and that's why I remember it.
So
Yep.
it was before he was the Cardinals closer.
Yeah. 2000 overall, 2000 MLB draft, 29th pick overall for the Atlanta Braves. I've been on Team Wainwright since I was in high school. He got drafted by the Braves when I was, when the 2000 draft, that would have been in June of 2000. So I was getting ready to go into my sophomore year of high school when
I was in 4th
grade. When Adam Wainwright was drafted by the Braves. There you go. That is a long ass career. He was so good for that stretch too.
Oh yeah. So Newcomb's velocity was up in his last start.
Yeah, let's get to Newcomb as I digress on the faux Adam Wainwright tease. On my first crunch, I don't do anything other than just let it rip for 150 lines to see where I land. We're projecting 21% Sean Newcomb today. I got 42. So I am super, super heavy on like below average priced guys tonight. But again, I see no reason not to be. I think that his ceiling is higher than that. It's a game in arguably the best place he can possibly pitch. That team is now missing 2 of their best hitters from the entire season, at the least. I know it's scary because his command can wax and wane, but I want to have a lot of Wainwright unless you tell me something that is dramatically scary for his outlook. Or did I say Wainwright there? I brought that on myself. I'm going to do that all day now. Damn.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm with you. He's also facing a very right-handed heavy lineup, and he's been a reverse splits guy ever since the minor leagues. Yeah, I mean, the walks are the only concern, but he's really cheap. And yeah, so I mean, I am already going to start backtracking on my 100% Giolito stand because I just don't think it's going to make sense to have 100% of any SP2 given how underpriced and how much upside these guys have.
There's just not enough to pair them with at the top outside of Kluber.
Yeah, I hate slates like this. It's really frustrating because it would be such a good slate if there were like a ton of good hitting spots to just have 100% Giolito and crush the field with bats, but you can't do it.
Yeah. I'm pulling up Newcomb's game logs now. Got him up on Brooks Baseball as well, so I think we could take a decent look at this. I don't remember anything standing out to me outside of this most recent not so awesome start against Boston, but I mean, he has the opportunity to miss 7-8 bats at least.
Yeah, he's one of those guys, like, it's impossible to predict what he's going to do on a start-to-start basis.
Right.
It's just so volatile, but it's obviously as good of a spot as he's going to get going into San Francisco against a bunch of not very good righties. You're not really going to get better than that.
No, not at all. And that's the perfect spot for him in that while he does get incredibly wild and does get, like, you know, mashed around the park from time to time, this is the park that's probably going to be the most forgiving for it. So his floor is higher just from where he's pitching today. It's going to take a lot for him to get, like, for somebody to crank out 2 or 3 dongs against him in AT&T. So I love going to him. I just think, like, it's a high floor with a high ceiling. I think Newcomb might be, like, Giolito's price point is creating a ridiculous stance, but I think Newcomb might be the best combination of price and upside on the slate.
I still think it's Giolito, but like if Giolito was 7,300, I'd still play him over Newcomb.
Interesting. I probably wouldn't.
I just think, to me, they're really similar pitchers, except I just think Giolito has more talent.
I agree. I'm with you there. I trust Newcomb to, like, not murder me more. I don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, like, it's hard to see a game where Newcomb doesn't get you at least like 12 or 13 fantasy points.
Last 6 starts for Sean Newcomb. I'm going to read off his fantasy points for you. 2, 5, 5, 30, 1, -5.
All right, yeah, so I guess I'm mentally overestimating Sean Newcomb's floor.
Yeah, but that's also why I want him at 7,300, because at Miami was 30, and home against the Dodgers a couple starts prior to that was 36.
Yeah, I mean, the talent.
He's been really shitty this year. Oh my god. It's just this sea of red in the actual column on Fantasy Cruncher right now, which most people can't see because your face is blocking it. But you can trust me, everybody. I think I can move that around. I can. Nice. Now everyone can see it. Yeah, so it's either it has not been great over these last 6 starts outside of that gem against Miami. 5, 10, 12. Yeah, I mean, that start against Miami gave him significantly more points than all 5 of those starts combined.
Yeah.
I don't like seeing that because now I'm walking back I'd really like 42% Newcomb.
Oh, I mean, I don't think you even need to go that high to get overweight on him, though, is the thing.
21% expected ownership. 4th chalkiest pitcher on the slate. I assume it'll be 3rd when DeGrom falls off.
Yeah.
That's kind of scary.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would want to have 50% Newcomb at 7,300.
If Newcomb's going to be popular, I like the Berea pivot in that price range, actually. Against that same Texas team he just carved up in Texas.
I was just going to say, he is such a weird dude. He's been good lately. 4 20-plus point fantasy performances in his last 6 starts. One of the other starts was 14.5, so you're not, like, mad that happened. Only 1 blow up at Houston. Just didn't miss any bats. But do we want to dig into him? 4 starts into the 20s. I'd like to see if anything has dramatically happened for him.
Yeah, that's a good idea. He's someone that I keep like kind of writing off as he is who he is, but I think that looking at him probably makes sense. He's been good against lefties like all season long, and he was just getting blasted by righties. But if you looked at his minor league track record, it seemed like something that should regress, and we've seen that start to happen. He gets swinging strikes with his slider against righties. Yeah, so I mean, his chase percentage has been really good. He's been greater than 31% in 6 straight and 9, 10 of his last 11. So that's good.
So he's really dropped the velocity of his changeup in his last 6 starts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, so that the last 6 starts were the range that we were looking at, and he's taken his changeup from like an average velocity of, we'll say 83-ish to 80 to 81. And I think that's kind of interesting. It coincides, like his four-seamer hasn't moved at all. So maybe that little bit of added deception is helping.
Yeah, that's possible. Also throwing his slider a little bit more, it seems like. He's been above his season average slider usage in 5 of his last 6, like 7 of his last 8. But that's really a trend that started like a month, 2 months ago. Yeah, so I mean, the changeup differential could definitely be playing into it.
Yeah, that's something I always like to look at. I need to go back and dig into some of those studies on pitch speed differential and how it impacts just overall performance. It's been a while since I've read it, but I know that there was like a dream zone to be in.
Yeah, going from memory, I think changeup's like 8 to 10 miles an hour.
Yeah, I was gonna say 9, so we nailed that one. Yeah, now that we're saying this, I think that makes for an interesting pivot.
And people just don't play the guy.
No, I mean, we have him projected for 2% ownership. So at that point now, $100 more than Newcomb. After everything that we just talked about, I would rather be heavier on him and then
I think honestly,
Newcomb.
my guess still on what I end up doing is just kind of avoiding, or at least going underweight on this entire price range, and being overweight on Giolito, obviously. Probably on Zach Godley, especially if it appears that the Rockies are going to be like the highest owned team. That'll determine, I think, how much Godley I end up with is how much leverage it's creating. Since I do like Giolito.
Rockies right now 6% aggregate ownership on DraftKings. They are currently 6th overall. If that changes your equation at all.
I would want to be heavy on the Rockies in that case. Just because there's not a ton of great bats on this slate, and it is still Coors Field, and it is still a volatile pitcher in Godley.
I think this is probably a ridiculous statement, but I think if that's the case and they were at 6% ownership, I'd want to be heavy on both of them.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a spot where, like, if the ownership actually did stay that way, you can kind of step back and just be like, what are people doing? Because it's like they don't think the Rockies are going to hit well in Coors, but they also don't think $6,400 Godley's going to pitch well.
Right.
Which, like, and it makes sense because, like, I don't know, if you watch a lot of shows and just read content, you'll get a lot in games like this where it's like, well, I don't want to pay for the Rockies because they're facing a good pitcher in Godley. I don't want to play Godley because because he's pitching in Coors.
Right.
And it's like, okay, well, something's going to happen in this game, guys. Like,
exactly.
There are going to be points somewhere.
Yeah, and I think both sides of the equation look interesting. Like right now, I don't have on my first crunch. I didn't get a lot of Godley, but I'm fine with that. It needed to be dug into a bit, but I did have double the field on the Rockies bats. 6% aggregate, as I mentioned. I have 12. A lot of that going to Arenado. A lot of that going to Cargo.
We should manually be dropping Arenado's projection, right? Because of his injury.
Should we? Has he been bad?
That's what I was going to pull up. Like, I know he has
the shoulder injury. Got a shoulder thing.
And I know anecdotally someone mentioned it might have been you or someone mentioned something about him not doing well, but I haven't actually looked at it. So I'm going to pull that up now. I think for me, I'm not sure what like your first place would be. For me, normally it's just to go to like a 14-day sample of hard contact and just see if that looks weird. And then I would look at his expected WOBA.
Yeah, so I would do it probably more generally than that. I rarely dig into hitters all that much. There's just I never feel comfortable with it unless we're trying to detect an injury.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
So I just grabbed everything from August 1st. I don't know when his shoulder is supposed to be hurt, but just in general, 268 average, 350 on base, 423 slugging. It's an 88 weighted runs created plus, only a 154 ISO. If I look at his batted ball data, hard contact 39.6%, not bad. It hasn't fallen completely off. If I'm going to pinch that time range a little bit more, we'll go from my dad's birthday, August 22nd, until right now, just as an arbitrary cutoff. Yeah, not great in the past couple weeks. 207, 300, 362, a 51 weighted runs created plus. He has one home run in that 71 plate appearance stretch. One of those happens to be the most recent game that he played, which was yesterday. Hit a dong. Before that, though, just 0 for 5, 0 for 4, 0 for 5.
Last 14 days, 34.3% soft contact, 28.6% hard contact. Over the last month, he's at 42.3% hard, 18.3% soft. So the last 2 weeks have been incredibly bad when you factor in like that how much those percentages have changed.
Yeah.
It's just so hard to like discount someone by too much because we have no idea how he feels. Like he could have woke up yesterday and been like, I'm 100%.
Yeah, I'm back, baby. I got a cortisone shot. I feel like the greatest.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's the whole argument people get into about hot streaks and cold streaks. Like nobody denies that they exist. It's just we have no idea when they start and stop.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I've been in situations just personally as a barely marginal athlete where you feel good on a particular day and you like things are just different. And then I've been on days where like you wake up and you feel like garbage and you play like garbage. Like those are things.
There have absolutely
slight injuries.
I've been like, there is zero chance I'm getting a hit today.
Yeah. Oh my God, yeah. There were times where I knew that I was starting pitching that day and just like, man, I'm gonna get fucking rocked.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like you get up, like your back stiff, you just feel like you feel awful, and it's just like, oh man, this is not gonna like my arm doesn't even feel good to like move when I wake up. It's like, oh, this isn't gonna be fun.
Nah, and sure as shit, you got bombed. I can picture that start clear as day. So that makes for an interesting wrap back to Godley. If you know Arenado's starting and we think that he is not as good, that's just another spot where I'm even more interested in Godley. Like I know that it's a very marginal nod towards him, but if the 3-hitter in the Rockies lineup is hitting like a 9-hitter because his shoulder's wonky, it's just another hole in the lineup for arguably their best hitter.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I guess also going back to Arenado and talking about that we have no idea when stuff starts and stops. It is worth noting what his price tag is on DraftKings. Like he's 10 to 15% cheaper than normally he is when he's in Colorado.
Yeah, it's all a balancing act. Yeah, Arenado at 5,000, Story at 5,700. It's gonna be a crazy game to take a look at, especially with all the weather issues. I mean, we're looking at a slate with 10 games that could conceivably be 9, could even be 8, depending on how the weather in Philly looks. Changes things pretty dramatically.
Yeah, there's a ton of moving parts on this slate.
Yeah, and I just don't like that I like parts of this. Like, I normally like the Nats bats just because they're the Nats, especially in Philadelphia where that power will play. But I do like Arrieta at that price point, but I'm not going to play him if I think he's going to throw 1 1/3 because of the rain.
Right.
The deeper dive today will be a very essential show for updates on weather. That's for sure. And the live stream with Jake and Chris.
Yeah. And by extension on ownership and like what good approaches to tournaments are, since there's just like the weather and everything's just going to affect, ownership on guys is going to affect just so much on this slate.
Kluber, Marquez. I mean, Barria, if Newcomb is 21%. Godley, Giolito. I don't think I need any other pitchers.
What's Marquez's projected ownership?
9.
Yeah. I think J.A. Happ's the guy that I would add to that list.
That's he's sort of just in like no man's land.
Yeah, that's why I kind of want to force some of him in. But the thing is, like, do I really want to play him over Marquez, who I just love every time he pitches?
All right, Happ at 9,300. Let's see. So with the Yankees, I believe with the Yankees, his first start would have been Giolito here in Texas. Fantasy points 25, 24, 23, 0, 19, 19. What do you want out of J.A. Happ at 9,300 for you to be satisfied?
A combination of like 25 plus and also more than Herman Marquez.
Sure.
But like, I mean, like, in all seriousness, I think like that part's important because Marquez is low owned also, and it doesn't matter what Happ does if Marquez either does significantly worse or better.
Happ projected 5% ownership. As I said, Marquez 9. In my model, no tweaks have been made yet today. Happ, 14% chance of being a top 2 scoring pitcher on DK. Marquez, 13%. So by all accounts, these guys are coin flips between each other. Neither of which owned in double digits. Although if DeGrom goes down, I would assume Happ would get a priority over Marquez. But I don't even know if that's the case with Marquez being more owned now.
Right.
Do you think who do you think would get more out of the DeGrom ownership?
What's Happ? Just because, like, maybe in the DFS, Twitter bubble, you're seeing a lot of love for Marquez now, but still, just when you take a step back, you're talking about a pitcher in Coors against a team with a 4.5 implied run total versus a pitcher in Minnesota against a 3.8 implied run total.
Yeah, I feel the same way there.
And anyone who has models that haven't taken into account Marquez's recent stuff are going to have Happ probably outscoring him.
Agreed. Which makes me then like Marquez more.
Yeah, I agree with that. I just pulled up Marquez because we had talked before his last start about him throwing his slider more frequently at home and that translating to more success. In his last couple of starts, well, one start was at San Diego, but in that last start against the Giants, he actually only threw it 13% of the time. But I think what's interesting is he still threw his curveball only 17% of the time. And he basically just threw his fastball almost 60%. Still got a ton of swinging strikes. So I'm not going to be concerned about that because, one, he was effective. And two, the kind of null hypothesis for why I thought he might be doing better at home was that he was cutting back his curveball and throwing more fastballs and sliders.
Mm-hmm.
It turned out that it was basically just throwing more sliders. So, but the fact that he just went to a bunch of fastballs in that start isn't going to concern me.
That makes me happy.
He was also throwing harder, it looks like.
So I'm locking in, well, not locking in, but I'm dropping my pitcher pool to Kluber, Happ, Giolito, Marquez, Godley, Barria. Am I missing anybody?
You said Kluber, Happ, Giolito.
Kluber, Happ, Marquez, Barria, Godley, Giolito. I don't think that I'm going to go to Newcomb if he's...
Yeah, I was going to say Newcomb. Gibson is kind of interesting, but seems unnecessary on the slate. Same with Junis. Like, they're all guys that I could... It wouldn't surprise me if they had good starts, but I just don't see myself wanting to allocate a ton of ownership to those guys instead of the guys you mentioned.
Yeah, like, I mean, Junis, obviously, good matchup, solid pitcher, but he's 8,300 or 8,500?
Right.
I mean, you need...
Yeah, it's just tough. Yeah. Gibson, I think if the Yankees like get traction, then Gibson becomes interesting, I think. Just for the leverage.
Junis, 30 points in his last 2 starts.
Yeah, he was one. Like
he hasn't walked anybody since August 17th.
Wow.
4 starts, 16, 20, probably 27, 28 innings, no walks.
He's basically Dylan Bundy, like version 2, just a ton of strikeout upside and a ton of home runs.
That's probably more Dylan Bundy version 1 because version 2 seems to be pretty bad right now.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I do get what you're saying there, though. Yeah, I think those 6 guys, I think that throughout this entire show, it's been a real roller coaster for Newcomb. If he's owned, I'm good.
Yeah.
Knowing that Barria is there for $100 more. So I'm just going to run those 6 guys, bump max ownership up to 80%, and see what the rest of my stuff looks like. I think that makes for an interesting like balance of where hitting ends up after having them. Lots of Kluber, lots of Giolito as the 2 priorities, which does not shock me in the least. I would probably need to give a couple of these guys some thumbs up because Barria not getting a ton of love. Showing up in just one lineup in the first 60, so.
Yeah. What percent? I forget. The thumbs up, what percentage like bump is that?
Shit, I don't remember. 8? No, that sounds weird. That's a really weird pick. I used to know it, now I don't.
I think it was a like random number. Like not random, but like an 8 or something like that.
It wasn't like a 5 or a 10, like a clean spot. Is it in the frequently asked questions? Not. Is it in the tutorials? Probably. I don't remember. Somebody in chat. Emax says 8%. So did T McBee.
All right, there you go.
That's a really weird number, but they've probably picked 8% for a reason. Does that get me more bar? I just want to get like a decent balance coming out of it. Okay, I like that. 15. So I'm going to get a lot. Oh, now I'm not getting much godly. See, it's just a weird balancing act. I want to have enough of all of these guys so I like it. Yeah, so that's where I'm going now. If I thumbs up Godly, thumbs up Barria, it's going to pull down Giolito, but it has to because I'm getting 70% of the dude. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so that's everybody, and I think that'll work. Because that's really the main takeaway. What do you gain out of having all of these low-priced guys? Is there enough unique hitting out there that you need to structure your lineups a certain way?
Right. And also, I mean, with how much, I guess, not great expensive hitting there is, I don't think it's insane to maybe try and get some Kluber like Marquez lineups.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
It's just like how much of that do you actually want to?
Yeah, weighted average ownership price today, 8,700 per pitcher. I mean, that's obviously factoring in DeGrom right now, but that's a relatively high number on this sort of slate. I came in at 8,000, so I was saving $1,400 in pitching over the average projected lineup. A large amount of money. All right, so I got 77, just using those 6 guys, 77% Giolito, 47% Kluber, 27% Marquez, 23% Happ, 15% Godly, 11% Barria. I like that spread, relatively speaking, without any additional tweaks. 5-man stacks that come out of this. Cubs, Yanks, Rangers, Rockies, Indians. I mean, you're getting lots of high-end. I can share my screen with you so you can see this too, if you're trying to look at it. And if you're not...
Yeah. I was just looking at your avatar.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm sure that's pretty as well. But, like, I'm happily betting on Cubs bats or Yankees bats or Rockies bats in Coors, even though I have Godly Indians bats.
Yeah, I don't love any of them, but it's where the upside is.
Yeah, it's better than getting... like the White Sox or the chalk stack for hitting today, 11% expected ownership on DK. I'd rather just get the pitching I like and ignore the White Sox.
Like I don't mind. To me, it's more of mixing in one-offs from the White Sox. Like they have home run upside, but Junis doesn't normally give up huge stack games. He just gives up individual games.
Man, I didn't even really think about it with Junis being on the opposite side of that. But yeah, White Sox highest owned team on DK. I mean, I know why they are. Their price point is just crazy low. And I think that'll wiggle a little bit and drop them down when DeGrom's ownership goes away. You won't need as many cheap bats. But like, I don't need 15% Yolmer Sanchez in this scenario, and that's what the public has. I don't need 15% Moncada. What's the point? So I'm already fading those White Sox bats from a ownership standpoint. That makes me feel even better. Phillies are the 3rd highest exposed team on DK right now. It's another team that I didn't really get to. And, it doesn't seem like we're going to get to them either. I don't really need a target against Fede. So I love the idea of being able to get the pitchers that I want and then get the Cubs offense, the Yankees offense, the Indians offense, Diamondbacks in Coors if Marquez blows up, Colorado in Coors if Godley blows up. I mean, this structure is pointing me naturally to things I like. First lineup is a 5-man Cubs stack, Kluber, Giolito, with the Delmonico Palka combo from the White Sox and Trevor Story as a one-off shortstop.
Yeah, it's pretty solid.
Yeah, it's...
I know I'll end up higher on Milwaukee than you just because John Lester's the worst, but everything else seems pretty much in line with what I would think.
We need to get the Jake and Adam I Hate John Lester show going at some point in time soon. I haven't really looked at that game. Wade Miley against Lester. Man, Miley against Baez and Bryant. Ooh, Contreras. That's a scary, scary spot for him.
Yeah. He's been better than he gets credit for, but he's still like an average pitcher. The concern for me there is always just going to be that Brewers bullpen. But yeah, so I mean, Josh Hader hasn't pitched since Friday.
That's one, like, I never really know how to deal with that. Because basically what we're saying in that situation is, oh, Hader's available, but if he's pitching, the Cubs are already out of it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, basically the way I look at it is if the Cubs don't explode in like the first, 5 innings, then they're kind of in trouble because if we assume the game's close, Milwaukee's bringing in good relievers like Hader.
Agreed.
If they go off in their first couple of at-bats, then you can get to the, rookie call-ups because they're not going to burn Hader. Or
yeah, like
Corbin Burns.
I would like the Cubs less in cash than I would in the GPP.
Sure.
Okay, same page.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just like a, not something that swings things a ton, but it's just like, what are the like when I like taking stacks against the Nats because kind of regardless of how the game goes through the first 6 innings, there's a chance that your team's going to score like 7 runs from the 7th inning on.
Yeah.
Whereas that's not very likely to happen against Milwaukee if they haven't done it early.
Very true. I've got 4 Kluber Marquez lines here, and I'd say only one of them is desirable. I don't particularly like a giant stack with the White Sox and Trout. I would scrap that. I'm not super fond of the twin stack, but I like Justin Bour and Rhys Hoskins with it with a one-off Stanton. I can get behind that. The Cubs stack here with Kluber and Marquez, I think, would be the one that would be most appealing to me. And I'm a Logan Forsythe truther, so that would work pretty well. I'm not,
but I'm anyone hitting in the middle of the order at 2,900 truther.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's just, that price is insanity.
Yeah, I like that lineup.
Yeah, that would be the only one I would really want to play out of that Kluber, Marquez mess.
Plus, you could play around with it and get like if you made another version where you like dropped Rizzo and made him Baez over Russell, basically, or Baez over I don't know, if like just Baez over Rizzo somehow, basically.
Yeah, you can move to Abreu or something at first. What's his price point?
Right.
It can't be that high, can it? Yeah, maybe it is. What in the world is 4,400? Okay, so he's like $200 cheaper. Why is he not showing up? How bad is my projection for him? Is he just not there?
He's not. He's on the DO.
Abreu?
Yeah.
In my projected lineup.
I think he might be due back today, I think. He took back Saturday.
That has to be the answer, right? He's just not
Abreu could be in the starting lineup Monday.
Okay, so he's just not in the fantasy cruncher player pool right now.
Yeah.
It's not one of those things that I pay attention to all that much. Rambo Fitness in the chat. Where do you get your projections? I go to the projection store. No, I made them myself. I assume you do the same, or at least create your own blend of something.
Yeah. I don't have my own model because I just don't have the computer capacity to do that. But yeah, I kind of aggregate a bunch of stuff and then manually change it to get it how I want it.
Yeah, I mean, I start with a base of the steamer per 600 plate appearance projections. I'm not going to try to reinvent the wheel. I can add and subtract things that I think are relevant to them from a fantasy perspective, but there's no need for me to build a model that'll do like single A translations for people and stuff. I'll let the real people do the work. If Fangraphs is going to continue to post projections for 3,000 hitters in the baseball landscape,
yeah,
what am I going to gain there? I'm not going to. I mean, the guys that have been doing steamer and zips have been doing it for like over a decade, so I've got a lot of ground to cover. If I want to try to just match that, it's not worth the work.
Yeah. I'll aggregate SaberSim, our projections, a couple of other sites that I'm not going to name, and then kind of adjust them on my own too to account for ceiling or stuff that I found, or even if I'm just kind of trying to force them to take a stand like for ownership, I'll give like a little bit of a percentage bump.
Same, and you have to do that mostly because one, it's not necessarily about what their average performance line is or what their projection line is. It's knowing how that plays in a DFS space.
Right.
That's why guys like Orioles Chris Davis, he doesn't necessarily grade out as an average outcome, but if you're looking at like gaps between average and median outcome, those are sort of the guys that have more weight in a DFS landscape than they do in a normal game-to-game stuff.
Right. And it's it's why I think people really should use different, even if you're not going to use different projections, at least like adjust your projections differently, whether you're playing cash games or tournaments, because a lot of players are just entirely different. Like you should be seeking volatility in tournaments and you should not be seeking it in cash games. But there are a lot of players, like Chris Davis is a good example, where the median projection is a median projection, and not accounting for volatility in your projections is just going to put you on a lot of guys that you don't want in whatever format you're playing.
Exactly. Yeah, it seems like it's simple on the surface, but it's really something to pay attention to depending on what style of game you're trying to play.
Yeah.
Anything else interesting in the chat? I don't see anything. Rambo Fitness said, how would you recommend learning to set up spreadsheets like this?
Yeah, I'm asking too.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say this much. What is happening in this spreadsheet is significantly simpler than the visual that it gives off. I'm just really, really weird about things looking like visually appealing on my screen. So I have to have everything formatted really nicely and a nice color scheme. All of that is just window dressing. If I didn't put any of the color on here, it would just look like most other people's spreadsheets. I just have like a weird stance to take because I can't stand looking at a spreadsheet that's just white and gray. But when push comes to shove, it's really just adjustments on the steamer baselines. So, sorry. I mean, look, I'm well aware that my ability to use Microsoft Excel is ahead of 99% of the people that I generally talk to. That just happened to be my job for like 5 years, so you gain a little bit of knowledge.
Yeah.
Just how it is. Time. Yeah. I mean, I've been doing it for 10 plus years. It's a time thing.
I still write stuff down on paper, so
do I. All of my football notes are right here on my little notebook sitting next to me. All of the things that I needed to do for yesterday's games. Yeah. If I went back into my email and grabbed out like Excel workbooks from 2007, you guys would be like, what in the world did you do 10 years ago? I was just like, I don't know. I did what I could. Try to recreate it. We're going on a little bit of a tangent now off the process show Beaten Path, but there's a guy, Scott, who just watched all my NBA videos throughout last year, would pause it look at a screen, and he recreated like the entire system, the entire workbook almost to a T. Like sometimes you just need to put the work in.
I've added a few of your things into mine already.
Yeah, it's sometimes you like, and I have stolen plenty of stuff from other videos and things that I've seen because like you don't know you have that idea, and then what I do is I see it. If it's easy to implement, then great. If it's not, then I work on it until I figure out whatever they did. Like Alex putting out perfect pitcher articles and percentage chance of being a top scoring pitcher. I was like, oh shit, that's probably something I should do. I built 2 sim sheets and, was able to approximate his answers. So I was like, okay, that's probably good enough. Done. Just take ideas from everybody else and try to recreate them. That's the best way you're going to learn how to do something. What you want to do is find something that you are interested in and find someone that's already talked about it and try to recreate what they're doing. And once you recreate that, you can go on a path of trying to add more stuff for yourself. That's how I picked up every single skill set for Excel, at least.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Anyway, that was a little bit of a tangent. Do you have anything else that you want to touch on for this particular slate? Anything from a construction standpoint or any just general thoughts?
No, I think we actually did a pretty decent job going through the construction part, at least, assuming DeGrom doesn't play.
Yeah, and I think that's a stance we have to take now. If that game happens, even if it happens, I don't think that you can roster DeGrom.
Wait, what?
Like, if the weather report reads right now like it at 6 o'clock, the same as it does now, and the chances of rain from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. are 84, 92, 88, 96, 94, 90. Even if you think that game can play, you can't play DeGrom.
Yeah, okay, yeah, now I'm with you. I just was like, wait, if the game plays, I'm playing DeGrom. Like, but I was thinking like if the game plays and the weather clears up.
Yeah, like if it's going to rain in any form or fashion, even remotely close to what they're projecting it to do in Philadelphia tonight, I think it's Philadelphia, right? No, it's not. Yeah, it is. No, it's not. Who the fuck do they play? The Marlins. In New York, rather. Jesus.
They're in New York.
In New York, yeah. You can't play them because they're not going to throw DeGrom for an inning and a third and bring him out after a 45-minute rain delay and jam him back in there. Not DeGrom, at least. They're going to go to someone.
It's the Mets. They very well could.
You probably don't want that performance, though, either. No. So, yeah, it's... I think DeGrom is just off the radar entirely, barring any weird Mother Nature nonsense.
Yeah, unless we get, it's going to be clear for 3 hours.
Yeah.
But outside of that, yeah.
I can't wait until it clears out and all of the thought process of ignoring DeGrom just goes by the wayside.
Yeah, I'll have to redo ownership, like, exposures entirely. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
It'll be a nice primer for NBA season.
Yeah, for real. Coming up so soon too.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm really excited for that like 10-day stretch of no baseball, but also no NBA. Just to like reset my brain a little bit. But I cannot wait until the NBA starts.
Yeah. I always get really excited for the beginning of NBA because I'm just so tired of like line drive outs and stuff. And then after like one day of watching rotations and watching coaches be idiots, I'm ready for like lineups again where, my guy hits every 9 hitters.
Yeah, it is a weird balance of the way that the sports are played. Like knowing, all right, at the very least, this guy's going to bat a couple times barring injury. To like, oh, cool, I picked Kyle Lowry on the day that he decided to only take 3 shots from the field.
Right, exactly.
And I had 70% of him because it was a 4-game slate. But that's the NBA. The NBA is, in my opinion, the most fun fantasy sport.
Yeah, the NBA and golf are my 2 favorite sweats.
Speaking of golf.
And I don't play golf nearly as much as I probably
should. I'm ready to do a very deep dive into playing golf. Things were going a little bit better before we started this show for me. Not enough holes remaining. Keep it going, gents. Yeah, NBA is just my thing. It's the most fun combination of knowing that people are going to get opportunity and having the variability of like fun to watch.
Yeah. And it's, I don't know, it's fun too because obviously it's the easiest sport to project.
Yeah.
But with all the content out there now, you just get so much groupthink every day that tournaments become pretty fun.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm so excited. Basically, like a month from right now, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, preseason is really profitable too. Like, I hate preseason sports, but I did the shows with Eddie last year, so I basically played just because I didn't have anything. Like, I was spending my time on it anyway, and it's pretty easy.
I don't think I can do it.
And it's not even as a plug. I would recommend just listening to Eddie because he actually enjoys going into the like just reading coach speak for like 3 hours
Yeah,
and interpreting it. Whereas I would much rather just sit on my computer and look at numbers all day. So
exactly.
I absolutely hate the preseason research, whereas he loves it and he's good at it. So I just listen to him and then do whatever.
Yeah, that's sort of my problem. I don't want to do research on like, oh, this guy's expected to play 18 minutes today as a whatever backup because so and so's not like I don't like being wrong on opportunity.
Right. And like for regular season, I actually enjoy spending my time like making minutes projections and everything, but that's still based off of like research that I can do, not like Googling coach names and seeing what they said in the press conference.
Right, like if I'm going to go through those lines and rotations and I know that Enes Kanter is going to play 28 minutes, I know that he's regularly going to probably play 28 minutes, like that work will carry over, whereas whoever I'm picking out in a preseason game, like that is not going to be a long-term piece of research. Right. I want my research to like carry weight longer than a couple days.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, no, I mean Eddie actually is really good at it.
So I hear.
And he enjoys it.
NBA season starts October 16th, so a little over a month away. And trust me, we will be going through a lot of NBA process. That one I can talk about for hours and hours.
Popcorn machine for the entire morning.
Or what is it? NBArotations.info?
Okay, I haven't used that one.
I think it's NBA. Yeah, it is. There we go. It's another. I mean, same sort of story. I have it up on the screen now, but you're getting your rotation. Oh my God, what a game here! The last regular season game, Rockets Kings. Rockets lineup of Tarek Black, Aaron Jackson, Zucci, RJ Hunter, PJ Tucker, Joe Johnson, Gerald Green, and Onowaku.
I'm guessing I quit NBA at this point.
Yeah,
I don't know who half of those people are.
Oh, you didn't have a lot of lineups with Jack Cooley in it on. I
actually remember him. I don't know who Aaron Jackson is.
Point guard.
Okay. And I don't know who Nigel Hayes is.
Nigel Hayes, Kentucky? Or am I thinking of a different Nigel Hayes?
I don't follow college, so it's very possible.
Oh, yeah, I'm thinking of a wrong guy. Wait, am I? Yeah, went to Wisconsin. Who am I thinking of? I don't know. Not important. Anyway, guys, that's it. I say play tons and tons of Luke Giolito. I say play quite a bit more than the field of Zach Godley. I say if Sean Newcomb maintains relatively high ownership, you should pivot to Jaime Barria. Feel free to grab Corey Kluber. Feel free to grab Herman Marquez. Feel free to grab J.A. Happ. I think it's that easy today.
Yep.
Which means get all of your Eric Fede in now. Alrighty, guys. Thank you for joining us from A to B. We'll be up at 2:30. The deeper dive starting at probably 5 o'clock today?
Yeah.
5 o'clock, deeper dive. Adam and Laffy going through game by game with all of the updated ownership information, weather reports, etc. And then Chris and Jake closing it off, taking you all the way to lock. Best of luck today. Let's make some money, people. Adios.